Hi there. I just started some experimenting with the inductive heater, which I just got recently, and so I wanted to start with some grounding experiments. And what I have for my setup, I have a bifilar coil, of course my 1800 watt inductive heater. I have a watt meter on the input to the heater to measure the wattage going into the heater, and then my bifilar coil is connected to my load. My load's just selectable in wattage, and currently I have 1500 watts selected. And I also have two grounds, which are, each one of these goes to an iron plate that's buried outside about 3 feet deep, and those iron plates are 10 meters apart. So these grounds are 10 meters apart. Okay. So what I would like to do is 3 little tests. This is my heater right here in red. This is my bifilar coil. So the first test I would like to do is just the output of the bifilar coil through my load with no ground. And then the second test I would like to do, this is my inductive heater over here, with the bifilar coil through my load with a common ground, earth ground, being these grounds here. And then the third test I would like to do is with separate grounds through my load, one on each side of the bifilar coil and load. Okay? So, for ease of doing this and to do it in the fastest amount of time, we'll hook up the 2 grounds, and we're going to do this test first, and then we'll record the output too with no ground, common ground, and separate grounds. We'll know what the input is because of the watt meter. The output, I'm just going to have to make a judgment call on whether the light gets brighter or dimmer or no change. So we'll write that down as we go. So the first test is, and I'm going to turn this sideways because it'll flood the camera out. I have this little shield here. Okay. There we go. So the first test we're going to do, again, is this test here with the common ground. So we have our bifilar coil through our load. Both sides go to a common ground. So we'll start the heater. Heater's kind of a trip to start. Right. And the heater's set on 5, whatever that means in real life. Okay. Alright, there we go. And we'll kind of adjust it so we get a pretty good output. So our input is 1254 watts, and that's with the common ground. The output is kind of a judgment call. Looks like when I adjust it to the most brightness that I can get, still around 1250 watts, and It's probably 90%, maybe bright. So we're going to call that 90% as a reference. Okay. Now, when I separate these two, unplug this ground from that ground, then we'll have our two separate grounds through the bifilar, through the light, back to the second ground, and again those grounds are 10 meters apart. So I've got a jumper running off my coil to this ground, so when I separate it, it'll go through that ground, out 10 meters to the other ground and back in. So here we go. Okay. So we've seen a considerable change in the brightness. I'd say we're probably about 30% bright on that one. We still have 1200, actually we have 68 watts in, with about 30% brightness on the light. Okay. Now we're going to try it with no ground, which is just the coil through the bifilar coil through the load and back. So let's see, get a little jumper here, and what I'm going to do is I don't want to shut this down. We're going to hook it right here, and I'm going to hook it to the output of my load. Maybe. Let's try this. Hook it there. Disconnect the ground wire. Oh, I lost it. Alright, now we'll restart the heater. Restart the heater. Let's just do this. Put it here. Alright, so now we have our coil. Restart it. Okay. Then we have 1282 watts. And 1282 watts, and it's probably about 90% brightness. Obviously it's hard to judge, but it's reasonably close. So with no ground, we have about 1282 watts in, about 90% brightness on the output. A common ground, about the same, 1254 watts, 90%. And a separate ground, 1268 watts, about 30% brightness. That's the end of my test. Thank you.